even lift a finger. That's if you can still think straight enough to know what kind of hell you're in.
No, this isn't the houses that horror built. No, this is not the night welcomes horror. This is Hidden Gems, and I got my boy special guest for this one because, well, he brought this one up, and I was looking as people were talking about this film. So why not talk about this hidden gem with the first person that actually mentioned it to me? Radar, are you ready to talk about a place that I don't know? We'll probably end up, hopefully not in the same circumstances.
Hopefully not. Oh my god. This it's so funny because like this is a movie too that certainly isn't for everyone. Not for everyone, but it's a hidden gem for a reason, I guess, because that's what they're here for. They're not for everyone, but the people who are going to watch it are going to absolutely fall in love with it. So
Yeah, it's funny when when I first started watching it, I didn't realize that. I mean, we have Geoffrey Rush and John Lithgow. I mean, two amazing actors. There's so many. The
stacked.
fact that they executive produced it as well, I was like, huh, that's even more interesting. It's like if you watch the film Grumpy Old Men, but took away the comedy, went straight into like horror elements. This is what it reminded me of. And then you just smack it right into New Zealand, which I love films that are done in New Zealand. Big international lover of New
Big
Zealand
international
films.
guy, I know.
Yeah, and this is actually, since we have an author here, this is actually based on a short story by Owen Marshall, which, once again, I mean, this is why I think we could both agree that if one of our stories ever becomes a film, that's a dream come true.
That's I mean, there's several goals to have, but getting a getting something of yours made into a movie, that's probably the ultimate goal at the end of the day. Cause like that just leads to so much other stuff too, hopefully.
Oh, no, definitely. And if it's Geoffrey Rush and John Lithgow together in it, I mean, off topic, I have to ask. So, pick one of your books, and what two actors would you want to be those characters in the film?
Oh man, that is so that's really difficult. I feel like um man. See, this is tough too because for a really long time, my first book, The Altar from Space, there's a character in it called Captain Phillips, and I had always imagined if on the offshoot that anyone cares about my writing enough to make it into a movie, that Tony Todd would play Captain Phillips. So that was very unfortunate that he is gone now. Damn, I was so close to getting that script put together. No, I'm kidding. But so I think that one, and then I'm drawing a blank on it. Zoe.
Zaldana?
Yeah, I would have her play the main character in that one. So those would be my two. What about you?
I mean, it's funny because I kind of veered off on what I was currently working on to an older project that I kind of dusted up that I finished writing 7 years ago. That had a coworker of mine, well, ex-coworker of mine, during one of our conversations. He actually brought it up. He goes, when's this finally going to be done? And it's done, but it's just I started revising it now, so I'm like really looking forward to doing it. But the main character in Henry, I would like to be played by Idris Alba. I think he's
Oh,
a
that's
phenomenal
always
actor.
always a good one in everything he's in.
As far as the girl Mary that's in there, I'm not sure because there's so many great child actors, but I will have to revisit that one as far as a child actor. But definitely Idris Alba, I think he could definitely pull it off. And if I was to have another one of the characters in there, I mean, huh, who- Anthony Hopkins will probably be in it as well.
Ooh, okay. So yours would pretty much stack up with the lineup from The Rule of Jenny Pen, because John Lithgow and Geoffrey Rush are absolutely fantastic normally, and in this movie. Like, John Lithgow is giving definite Trinity Killer vibes from when he did that run in Dexter, and everyone always gives him high praise for that, as they should. I feel like Geoffrey Rush is also a hidden gem of actors, because people don't really talk about him either.
No, they don't. And I mean, let's get right into this. I mean, right from get go, we start off in this courtroom setting, and for me, I'll be honest, I did not read any of the like synopsis of this film. I didn't really try to like want to know what the film was about, but I found it kind of different. That I mean, we've seen a lot of movies that opening sequence takes place in a courtroom, but the fact that the
Right.
main character is actually the judge, and it took me a while to understand why we were focusing so much on him. But like, what did you think about this? The whole opening sequence taking place in the courtroom. What happened in the courtroom as well?
I think it's like, for me, anyways, I don't know about you, but it was the most terrifying part of the movie, just because, and I sure we'll get into spoiler territory here, and I mean, come on, it happens in the first 5 minutes, but you have this judge who, he's getting old, maybe not too old, but he goes and has a stroke in that first opening scene, and he's like in the middle about to sentence he's sentencing someone, and he's having this like stroke, and it's just, but it's not like, it's a subtle build on it, where it's like the thing with the slaps a fly, and then he's sentencing this person, trying to keep it together, and I guess one of the victims,
There was a
family
mother.
members.
It was the mother, the girl.
That's right. The mother goes like, "Oh, thank God," and he goes, "Don't thank God." And he goes on this rant, and he's just starts getting more and more unhinged, and it's just like, I can 100, because of the world we live in now, and because obviously there are a lot of people who are in positions where they are far too old to be there. That's what makes it terrifying to me, is that 100% I could see this happening any day, where someone's doing something important and they just have a stroke. It's a great little opening sequence, though. What do you think of it?
The fact that, and I give this movie credit in this, I've never seen this done before, where you have this man being sentenced for, molesting a minor, and then the woman saying, "Thank you, thank you." And it's the mother of the minor, and he starts ripping into her.
It's wild.
It's your fault too. Why are you thanking me? I'm like, oh, okay, this is different. I mean, he's literally like ripping into her right into court. I mean, I wondered if he didn't get the stroke, we would have arrested too, because he basically could say you're an accomplice to this.
Right.
So there's no reason for you to say thank you. But yeah, the whole sequence with the fly, and he's like taking some crushing the fly. Then he's trying to drink water, and then he can't like focus, and there's this noise. I mean, that is so scary as far as the stroke element of it. I think for this film, there are horror elements in this film, but when you watch the film, it's one of those films that it treads lightly on the horror side, but when it goes full horror, it goes full horror. But for me, I kind of liked that whole sequence, because here you have a guy who's used to being, let's be honest, a powerful figure, and basically weakened in his courtroom.
Yeah, like on the equivalent of his throne too, because he's on his high, got his gavel in hand and just tanks one. And I feel like too, even if he would have recovered enough from the stroke, that little rant against the victim's mother probably would have gotten him in hot water anyways to begin with.
Oh yeah, and I think this is one of the good things about this film, the transition of, here you have a person with power, person who his words have the highest impact of anybody in the room. He is the law, and then gets a stroke, and then gets put into like a retirement home where he's there recovering from the stroke. Now you have somebody who's in the position of power to be in somewhere where they have no position at all, and they're just one of many. But like, what did you think of the the fact that the setting changed from a courtroom to a retirement home?
And I feel like this film, like you said, it treads lightly on the horror elements, but I feel like there's just parts of the real world that are just inherently scary and terrifying, and old folks' homes are just right there. I think it's these people that are in the homes, the residents, are just like, it's so sad. It's so sad. They have absolutely no power. And you hit the nail on the head. It's like the perfect showing of he now has no power. It's all been taken away from him, and he kind of was used to it. So, and as the movie goes on, you can tell this dude is a pompous asshole. This
Yeah.
dude is so full of himself. Um, and like he just thinks he's above everyone. So it's like, yeah, he's used to having that power, and now that he's so humbled, one, physically to a wheelchair for most of the movie, and then just in the fact that he has no status here. He's just an old person, and it's such a good setting. Like, and I'll probably talk about it later, but my wife watched it with me, and she used to be a CNA, and she traveled around to different nursing homes, and she's like, this is giving me PTSD, because some of like the stuff that happened in the movie, she's like, that happens. It happened to me like 5-6 times, and I'm like, oh no.
There were a lot of, I mean, I'll be honest, it definitely was an eye opener for me, because majority of the time when we see retirement, actually, the majority of the time we've done films that, especially the horror element, that have the elderly, it's always like, was it old people was one of them,
Yeah.
and you have them turn into like zombies and stuff and killers, and here you have them in their unfortunate, like, natural weakened state, like I felt really bad for the woman who just like, oh, my family dropped me off here so they could go on vacation. They're gonna pick me
Yeah.
up at Christmas time. And then, the guy who was outside smoking a cigarette.
That was wild.
Oh, he was like, "You're a judge. What the hell are you doing in this shithole?" Basically telling you, you got all this money, you're here in the shithole. And then as he walks away, Stefan walks away, turns around, the guy accidentally lit himself on fire. Hey, all right, I do gotta say this, man. Where the fuck are all the cameras and all the security in this place? Because if there's one thing that scared me, I was like, hold up, where is everybody when all this
Right.
shit's going down? It's like there's nobody around.
Nobody
And
cares.
that's, I think, what makes it even more scarier, the fact that you know we see the images of, they just put them in rooms, walk away, and leave them.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, like that whole sequence where they're sitting in that whole room, and you see like all the elderly. I mean, how much like that, because they were all different individually.
Yeah.
But like, which one? I know this is a random question, but which one outside of our characters were you're like, huh? Like you actually felt like you felt for?
I mean, yeah, I feel like most of it, but I would say probably the Christmas lady. Like Baruch, because like, she obviously has short-term memory loss
Yeah.
on top of everything, because she just constantly keeps saying that. But I think they played that character off pretty well when she sits next down to Stefan and goes like, these people are all crazy, stay away from those weirdos over there. I'm just here until my family picks me up at Christmas. And you don't think there's anything weird about that. And then he's like, it's October, ma'am. Like Christmas happened a while ago.
Yeah, I felt bad for her, and then there was that the couple
Yeah,
where
the couple.
where he was, were they both, it was just him that was behind the husband, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like at times they made it seem like she was a little bit, but
She
there's a
I was gonna
scene we'll talk.
say,
Yeah,
yeah, not to the level he was, but clearly, she wasn't also all there, very feeble. Um, and that's the craziest part about like a lot of these nursing homes too, is that they'll have one person to between 10 to 20 elderly during a shift. And it's like, there's no way in hell if things like go awry, there's no way you're getting to everyone in a reasonable time frame. So like a lot of these elderly people don't have control of their bowels anymore and they need to be cleaned up and stuff. And it's like they're sitting there for a hot minute. So that's the other part of it too. But this movie does a great job, like you pointed out. Yeah, there's probably no security because they're trying to cut costs. And yeah, there's probably only 2 or 3 employees, and they're probably off, I don't know, eating pudding in the kitchen.
yeah. It was a lot of stuff. I'm sitting there like, Jesus Christ, man. There's like nobody around, and as we start, you get deeper into the movie, things start happening. We meet. All right, so Geoffrey Rush character is Stefan Mortensen. He's the judge. So after suffering a stroke, he's like Radar said, wheelchair bound. He barely has any movement on his right arm. And yeah, he walks around pompous. Well, not walks around, strolls around pompous and know-it-all, and basically talking down to every single person. And then we meet David Crealy, played by John Lithgow. Now, one of the amazing things with John Lithgow is if he gives you the stare, I'll be honest, when the stares he gave, I would have shit my pants if I'm in that nursing home, man. Yeah, how many times they would have been changing my diaper every time he fucking looked at me. But we have these two great actors, and the portrayal of these two characters. Like, what did you think of the portrayals of Stefan Mortensen and David Crealy?
I mean, I think both are played expertly. I mean, John Lithgow, you already knew, from stuff like the Trinity, when he did Trinity Killer on Dexter, and he's done a few other like bad guy roles. He's just so good at being a bad guy, and he certainly is in this. It's a different kind of bad guy though. It's like just he's more of just like a menace, and you're not necessarily like, oh, this man's just unhinged. He's just a guy who's on a power trip, and as we pointed out, staff not really there to begin with, and so there's no oversight really on him, and he can just get away with this stuff. I think he's played to perfection, and Geoffrey Rush does a fantastic job as Steven. Like there's this, and he does such a good job of playing like the physical elements of it, which is such a huge part. I want to ask, how did you feel about like his physical presence in the film?
It's funny because like as I'm looking, I'm like, all right, yeah, he's in a wheelchair, but he still had that persona of I'm still on a pedestal looking down on you. And their interactions where they're going back and forth, where they're literally like at each other. And like the one scene I remember like the most was when Stefan Geoffrey Rush's character is sitting there by himself eating, and then there's another elderly man across from him, and then he looks down and he looks up and it's John Lithgow, Dave's there sitting. And he's just like sitting this dude's broccoli because he had a habit of taking everybody's food. So when he was done with his food, he would grab someone else's food. But then when he's sitting there and he knows he wants to break them, and that's I think Crealy's biggest thing. He wants to break people.
Yeah.
To the point where think about it. Every time he had the hand puppet, Jenny Penn, who rules, and then he'll go like that, kiss her ass, and then the dude like
lick her asshole,
lick your asshole. Well, like that scene where they're going back and forth, sitting there, and then John Lithgow's telling him, "Oh, you got to be careful with those coffee tables." He just keeps kicking him in the leg, dude. I'm saying,
it's brutal.
Where's security?
Yeah, and it's like you thought he was got to stop at like the third kick, but he just keeps going too, and it's just you cringe a little more with each one. That scene's great. And it's so funny because like Crealy is so crude, you know. It's a good backstory development with the character that he just wasn't ever like. They don't really come out and say like, this is what he did with his life or anything, but it's like he, clearly he didn't do much with his life. He wasn't particularly an educated person, so he never had really any control of his own. But he realized that like, I can have control over these elderly people. And it really is like the schoolyard bully taken to the extreme. That's exactly something like a jock in high school would do, of like, all right, lick her asshole, with the puppet. So they're both such interesting characters. And I hope Geoffrey Rush does not I hope he like starved himself or like made sure he lost a bunch of weight or something for this role. Cause like, man, there's a couple like the scenes where he's standing for the shower and like his body looked like rough.
Well, the best scene he had though was when he was in the bathtub.
Oh yeah, that was good.
She was like, "Oh, let me get the towel." He goes, "No, I could manage." And she walks away, and then he submerges himself under the water. He can't get up. And I like the fact that they took their time with that scene, because they could have rushed it and it would have fell flat. But the fact that you like kind of, and you don't, that's the thing too. They did a side view of the tub. So the minute he went in, you did not see him.
Yeah.
You just heard the bubbles, and then you see his arms and legs go up. But yeah, I mean, he looked as frail as you could possibly look, which was crazy because John Lithgow's character looked healthy as hell.
Yeah, he was clearly like mentally and physically better than everyone else in that home.
And the fact that they gave subtle hints that he's been in that home most of his life,
right?
With those pictures, which I would say that's the one plot hole they had, because I really wanted to know if he was. I mean, obviously, you get the notion that he probably worked there, because the way they treated him and they let him get away with everything, you figure,
right?
Yeah, favoritism towards him. But the fact that they showed the pictures, he was younger. You're like, what, this? No wonder he's miserable. He's been freaking stuck in this place his whole life, basically.
Yeah, it's like going to a nursing home for like your last couple of years sucks already, but like your youth spent working in a nursing home, hell no.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of scenes too. Like the one scene where he fucking goes on the dance floor and just starts pushing everybody, stepping on their feet, paving the way so he could, dance by himself. There's that scene where, well, every time, I mean, I don't know how many times he watched stuff with hyenas, and which was ironic because in the court, that's when Stefan told the woman, if there's no lions, if there's no lions roaming, all the hyenas come out to play, or all the hyenas rule, something like that.
All the hyenas rule or something like that. Yeah. And it's just
and this dude's watching everything about hyenas the whole time he's watching TV. Dave Crealy. The whole time he's watching hyenas.
That is like a fantastic animal like comparison to is Crealy is just a hyena. He's not like a lion. He never had rule when there was like actual leaders and people in the real world, but in this nursing home, there's none of that. He is the hyena. There's clearly no lions, and Geoffrey Rush certainly isn't providing too much of a fight against him, at least physically. Yeah. And we haven't brought it up yet, but what did you think of the roommate, Tony?
I felt bad for him because, here you have a guy who is obviously, a legend of football, and to the point where, they had students, who like a team come and talk to him. But it just, for a guy with so much fame, how he was a nobody in there. Even Stefan started, what he told him, he was, they said, thank you for we won the championship, but thank you for not being part of it because you were the whole time, recovering, sitting on the bench. And obviously he had some hip surgery done, but yeah, I mean, I liked his transformation from the moment we see him to the end of the film, like how he's sitting there, like with a big clock in his hand, and obviously I think it was his daughter's or his
Right.
granddaughter he was looking at, because he mentioned her later on how the way she looks at me, I don't want her to see me as a pitiful, weak person. But the fact that he was a weak person, because Crealy would pick on him like crazy.
There's some weird stuff he did to him too. Like
That
I,
one scene where you have Stefan laying down, and he's looking, all you see is like Crealy with his leg, and it's like the Jenny Penn doll holding on the leg, and they're moving him because that's his bad hip. So he's giving him all like the pain as possible. Yeah, I mean, like, what did you think of his character?
his character is interesting. It's like the perfect example of the person who like has just gone along with it, has just taken it instead of standing up, which it is tough to stand up for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times those people just need someone else to like, for that confidence to, hey, yeah, if we stand up together, we've got a good shot. And it's very clear he was sad, a bit of a coward. That certainly, there's a lot of stuff Jenny Penn did to him that I don't know if I would put up with.
No.
But he got to that, and I think it's such an the scene where it perfectly shows who he is as a character, like and where he is in his life, but who he's becoming is when he does the Maori chant. Kind of, he starts to do it. I think they're called hakas. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, but he starts to do it, but he just doesn't have like the energy or the stamina. So it comes off as like this really sad. He's going, oh,
yeah,
after like a few seconds, and he's trying to do it to Crealy, and Crealy's just like, it's just the perfect kind of example of like he's growing as a person. Trying to get his confidence back, but like again, physically, he's not a lion anymore.
Yeah. So let's so we have this rivalry forming as the movie goes on between Stefan and Crealy. Like what did you think of the rivalry between them and how it led to the end of the film?
It's a great buildup because it's like a Crealy kind of. It's clear he respects Geoffrey Rush's character in the way that he didn't break immediately.
Yeah.
He was stubborn. And so, for the rest of the film, he's like, I'm going to break you, Judge. And, it's this kind, it's like it's a one-way respect kind of deal where Crealy respects Geoffrey Rush, but clearly Stefan does not like Crealy in any way, shape, or form. But, again, Crealy is holding the cards. Because physically he's just better, and there's the aspect of is Stefan there mentally after a stroke, and he can take advantage of that. I wanted to ask, which of Crealy's maneuvers to make Stefan look like a moron did you think was like the most effective? Which one did you think was the most like brutal?
I'm sorry, man. He threw his own urine on top of him, man. I mean, he's arguing. He's like, he was in my room. I'm covered in my I forgot what verbiage you use.
Yeah.
And there's like, so this is yours. Yeah, but no, he threw it. I mean, that I think was as effective as possible because I mean, I not for nothing, but the authorities in this facility definitely weren't the brightest. Because you had Crealy stole candy and pennies from one of the other elderlies, which happened to be in the top drawer of the dresser that Stefan cannot reach.
Yeah.
So they just blamed him off the bat. But yeah, I think the whole piss thing was just
Oh
really
man,
messed up. But I do like when Stefan went into his room and emptied out all his asthma pumps
that was fantastic.
because you're wondering what was doing in the room the whole time. You didn't know
Yeah.
until freaking Crealy goes nuts and stuff. And now, speaking of him going nuts, what did you think of the body count that started tallying up because of Crealy?
I did not expect it to like I thought, for a long time that this movie was going to be more of just these two kind of bullying each other. But I wasn't expecting Creedley to like just be so mad at Steph and then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna kill this old lady. And it's clear he's got a taste for it afterwards. Um, and it's so interesting that like that's also where the movie took itself, but it also kind of gave, I think, Stefan more of an excuse to finally stand up because beforehand it was just like, all right, he's going to terrorize me, and Tony and everyone else here. Which, yeah, he's a prick, but is it worth standing up to him? That type of deal, by myself. But to add the level of, oh wait, if we don't stand up to him, there's going to be a lot of elderly people that get killed in this home, and no one's going to care. No one's going to dig into it. I certainly, I don't even think anyone. Yeah, they didn't even bring up They didn't really fuss about it when the first lady
No,
did they?
it
That's
was like
wild.
nothing.
Yeah.
And she passed. All they did was bolt the top of the gate. That's all they ended up doing. Like, and then you had the other guy who died in his sleep, but this dude basically put a pillow over his face or something.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I like when Stefan told him he was, that wasn't your first, was it? And you're actually wondering, like, hold up, was that his first? And so you started getting a little like, all right, is this dude is there more to the Dave Crealy character that they're holding back?
Right.
But I do gotta say this, and I think me and you are massive fans of this. The ambiguity in this film works.
It works.
If you want to know more and they don't give you more, then that's the whole point of the ambiguity. You know, like me personally, I think I would have liked a little bit more backstory to David Crealy, but at the present time, you really didn't care. And there was at one point in the film where you thought, all right, he's gonna stop being a dick to him, and this is when Stefan, suffered like I think another mini stroke
Yeah.
after Creedy grabbed him in the wheelchair and rushed him down the hallway and freaking went into the room and tilted the whole wheelchair for him to fall off. But and then they're sitting down having that conversation, and this is where Creely's, like you were saying, he basically says that, he never accomplished anything in his life. He wasn't the smartest, and but now he goes, it's funny, we go to this place and I'm full of life. The whole counter to everything, I'm full of life being in this place. But yeah, I like the whole rivalry between them. Like the way it ended was almost like prison like.
Yeah, it was pretty prison like, and we haven't talked about it really. But I guess, if someone's going to watch this film, kind of a fair warning, it does get pretty psychologically heavy towards the end because like Stefan deteriorates mentally pretty hardcore there for a little bit. And it's pretty bleak, honestly. Like,
Yeah, because the
yeah,
whole
like,
time he was gonna be leaving.
yeah. And it's like, it becomes very evident. No, he's not getting out of there. And that is
Do you
just,
remember what they offered him?
what did they offer?
They gave him the book about the toys working.
Oh,
He's looking like, book about the toys. Yeah, use a toy because the toys work.
yeah, that whole like sequence where they're like that whole like sort of montage sequence where they're like testing his cognitive speech abilities, and it's like it's fine when it starts, it's not awful, but then it like after a few cycles he like, the speech therapist is like, what, what did I say? And Stefan's like, clock, and he just keeps repeating the same word, and you're like, oh no, it's not gonna get better, is it? And it's that part is rough. So if you're gonna watch this film, I feel like it's nice to at least have that going in of like, there are some pretty bleak moments, and that gets pretty psychologically heavy, and you're like, damn.
No, this I'll be honest, this film probably will depress a lot of people.
Yeah. Yes.
Especially I started getting up there in age. I looked at it, it's like, wow. Yeah, after I'm done watching, I told my wife, so listen, just if you're gonna put me somewhere, just put me in there and don't just leave me there. Just don't just leave me there. Because don't get me wrong, see how these places are, but it's like one of those things where, like, the family of, obviously, the lady who had the Alzheimer's dementia, that's something that's tough to take care of, so it's like,
Right.
it kind of gives you one of those things in this film where you're watching, you're like, wow, because that's one thing this film did. It didn't show any family come visiting.
No, not a single family member showed up in the whole entirety of the film.
Yeah, which is kind of, usually most films will show some people visiting, but this one showed 0 people visiting.
Yeah, it's something that you don't even really like sort of notice either. It's one of those subtle differences, and it's kind of also a big example of what happens to elderly people when they go into these nursing homes, is that their family doesn't notice them anymore.
Yeah, because the one thing my wife asked me, she was like, well, why didn't Stefan, who's a judge, obviously he has money, just stay and hire people so he could stay at home and have nurses stay at that house with him, taking care of him, like a rotation of a crew? I don't know. They didn't really answer that, because I think he had no family.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing they didn't mention. He mentioned something real quick. I wanted to be somebody who would have, like grandkids and stuff like that, but I don't know what made me this. So the fact that his character started doubting who he was the whole time he was in there. Well, as it progressed, that he started realizing that he might be stuck in there. So he started having an epiphany of, wow, I'm a real douchebag.
Yeah. I'm a jerk. And I think the best part too is when he says that, like, there's that monologue of like, oh, he's reflecting. And then Tony says that quote, and then Stefan's like, well, actually, incorrect, and still corrects him. It's like, nope, never mind.
And then he asked Tony, well, why don't you stand up and say so? He goes, why should I help you? You've been a pain in the ass since the first time you arrived here. So he was a pain in the ass, But yeah, I mean, this movie is definitely, it's a hidden gem. I think it's currently playing on AMC Plus, also Shudder. Definitely watch it. If you're a fan of Geoffrey Rush and John Lithgow, I highly recommend this film.
Yeah.
Because Lithgow, once again, puts a masterful performance in. This guy, man, when he decides to play a villain, he's a fucking villain.
Yeah, and Geoffrey Rush just, again, cannot praise him enough for like the physical, emotional aspects, like just perfect performance.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the one big spoiler I'm going to give you. The doll's not paranormal, so don't think it's a paranormal film. It's nothing like that. It's just just watch the film. Let us know what you think. But definitely, this is a hidden gem. It was a 2024 film. I think it actually came out in 2025, though, because I don't remember it coming out last year at all. But yeah, definitely watch it. Great performances from these two great actors. The fact that the executive producer shows you how committed they were in this film. And yes, like Radar said, you might get some PTSD from this film, which if you made it to this point of our talk about it, you watched it and you probably got some PTSD because of this film.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely thank you, Radar, for bringing this film up. I know you were dying to talk about it, and I'm glad we got to talk about it on this show. So I don't know which one I'm doing next. Actually, yes, I do. If you want to see a slow burn, the next film, as far as hidden gems go, is going to be Starve Acre, which is a a very slow but well done film. If you're a Morphin Clark fan, if you don't know who she is, she's playing Galadriel in the new Ring of Power series on Prime. But she had an amazing performance in Saint Maud. So watch Saint Maud and go. You can skip Rings of Power. I'm like a little bit. Yeah, I love Lord of the Rings, but I'm a little torn on this, series. But definitely watch it. That's the next one, Starve Acre. So till next time, this is Jer. Thank you, Radar, for joining me on this episode of Hidden Gems as Yes. The rule of Jenny Pen and that doll was still fucking creepy. Till next time. Peace.
Peace.